If you thought there was some absolutely loaded squads and some big spenders in the American League, well, boy, are you in for a treat here with this National League preview. Welcome to Circling the Bases, the MLB betting and preview show here on the Bandwagon Sports YouTube channel. I'm your host, Shoehei the Dodogers, and before we get into my predictions for the 2024 NL season, make sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel down below. Any support helps, so I really appreciate it. And if you're really into sports, especially baseball, college basketball, NHL, and NBA playoffs both coming up, if you're into any of those sports, this is the channel for you. So let's get into it here. My tiers for the National League, like I said, I'm going to do 4 tiers just like I did yesterday for the American League. Make sure to check that video out if you haven't. The first tier here are our tanking teams. And in that tanking tier, we have the Pirates, the Nationals, and the Rockies. So the Pirates are actually currently first place in the National League. They're 6-1. They got off to a hot start, sweeping the Marlins in their first series, and then taking 2 of 3 from the Nationals in their last series. O'Neal Cruz, really fun player to watch for the Pirates. He's back healthy this year. He was a lot of fun when he got called up in 2022. Sadly, broke his ankle early in the season last year. Was out for the whole year. Brian Reynolds is still there. Solid outfielder. Has just been perennially really good player for the Pirates, one of their better players. They have some prospects that could be coming up, like Paul Skeens on the pitching staff. But they're just a team. I don't really think their roster is ready yet. They're still probably a couple years away, probably a couple more pieces. And in the NL Central that I think has some, maybe not super teams by any means, but some solid squads. I think the Pirates are probably the worst team of the bunch, despite getting off to this hot start once again like they did last year, and they fizzled off shortly thereafter. Then the Nationals are 2-4. They went 1-2 against the Pirates, like I mentioned. Also went 1-2 against the Reds. For them, it really is kind of C.J. Abrams is the big piece. They also called up Trey Lipscomb the other day. That's another fun prospect for them. But they just have a lot of other kind of guys. Like they signed Joey Gallo. Keibert Ruiz they got in a trade a couple of years ago. Like he could be solid, but they're just a team, once again, just talent-wise, I don't really think it equates to the other teams in their division. So I think that I would put them probably in last place pretty squarely as well, just like the Pirates. However, I would say the Pirates and Nationals, they are better than like the tanking tier in the American League for sure. I would put the Rockies in that tanking tier bad. They're currently 1-6. They went 1-3 against the Diamondbacks their first series. And then got swept by the Cubs in Chicago. Did make the game on Wednesday night kind of competitive, but this Rockies team, I don't really know what to say. Like they play in Coors Field, so they're gonna hit some balls out of the yard, but they just have like guys that have fallen off. Like that Chris Bryant deal a couple years ago just really has not paid off for them. Elias Diaz is like a solid catcher that they have, but there's just really not a whole lot there on the Rockies roster. Like they just really haven't put anything really, like there's no names that move off the page. I guess like Nolan Jones and Brenton Doyle could be some fun outfielders for them. Charlie Blackmon's been there forever, solid player, but they're just not competitive. I think kind of same thing. The National League West is the best division in the National League, and I really just don't think the Rockies add up to kind of any of those other teams in that division. So then the next tier that we're going to get into here, we have our kind of teams that are on the outside looking in that probably are not going to be postseason teams this year. First team, we'll start with the Mets. The Mets are 1-5. They got swept by the Brewers their first series. Kind of a bit of controversy there. Rhys Hoskins slid into second base for the Brewers to break up double play. Jeff McNeil didn't like it. Kind of got into heated debate, but I mean, it seemed like a fine slide to me. So, I mean, it's kind of old news a little bit here that happened, this first series about a week ago now. But that to me just kind of sums up the attitude of the Mets. Like they're not really a tough team. They kind of whine a little bit. They kind of expect things to go their way. And that Mets fan base, they can attest. Things usually do not go the Mets' way. I mean, Pete Alonso's a fun slugger for them. But it's really just like their pitching. They really have no pitching. They signed Luis Severino, he's kind of fallen off. A lot of their other starters are injured, like Kodai Senga. Really fun pitcher for them to start the year. So just for me, really the thing that does it for the Mets is their lack of pitching. I mean, Francisco Lindor is a good fielder, but not much of a hitter really anymore. Their outfield, really not a whole lot there. So they're just a team, like I said, I've been saying it a lot, just the East and the West, and even really the Central to a little bit of an extent, are just kind of, the top teams I think are just kind of so much better than these bottom teams. And that's where we're seeing where just these rosters don't stack up. And then the other team in the East in this tier, the Marlins. The Marlins are currently the only team in baseball still winless. They're 0-8. They went. They got lost all 4 games to the Pirates. Lost 3 against the Angels and dropped the first game of their set against the Cardinals today. They have an off day on Friday, so hopefully they can maybe bounce back. This is like a team like I if it wasn't for their pitching being so injured right now, like I think they could maybe contend. I mean, they were the 6th seed. They snuck into the playoffs last year, but Erie Perez is out for the year with Tommy John. Sandy Alcantara, their big pitcher, is kind of out right now as well. They still have Luis Urias, the hitting machine. People early in the year last year thought maybe he could hit 400 and didn't really come close, but he's really solid. They signed Tim Anderson in the offseason. I think kind of a change of scenery could be good for him. He was kind of running out there in Chicago. Jake Berger's back. He was another former White Sox. He was having a good year, and he's had a good start to this year as well. Got traded there around the deadline last year. So maybe if they can get some pitchers healthy, like they could be back in the race again. But I just kind of think there's some better wild card teams in these other divisions that make it probably get more challenging for the Marlins to get in the playoffs. And then the final team kind of on this outside looking in tier that I don't think is going to be a postseason team this year, the Cardinals. They're 4-4. They lost 3 of 4 to the Dodgers in their opening series. Did actually win a series on the road, though, against the Padres, so that's good for them. And then won their home opener today against the Marlins. Their team, I mean, they still have Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, 2 corner infielders that are good bats, good defenders. But outside of that, like there's really not a whole lot going on. They don't have really any pitching at all. They brought back like Lance Lynn, who was on the World Series team. Like Sonny Gray is currently their number 1 starter listed here, and he's on the IL. I mean, Miles Michaelis is decent, not great. So that's just another team that I don't really think the pitching's there for them to compete. And yeah, I mean maybe Jordan Walker's fun. I forgot to mention him. He's a good outfielder. I do like him. Fun young player. Could be kind of the future of the Cardinals, but. Outside of that, really not a whole lot going on there for the Cardinals, so I think kind of them too, just kind of inferior to the other teams in their division. So I'm moving on to these dark horse here, teams that some of them are going to be in the playoffs, some of them are going to be on the outside looking in. This is the biggest tier here. We have 5 teams. I was kind of on the fence of putting the Brewers on the outside looking in tier or this dark horse tier, but I mean, they won the division last year. I got to show them a little bit of respect. They did lose their manager, Craig Counsell, to the Cubs, their division rival, who are also in this dark horse tier that we'll get to here in a sec. But the Brewers off to a good start, 4-1. Like I said, swept the Mets in New York and then split a series here with the Twins to start. Sadly for the Brewers, they've kind of lost a lot. Like I said, Corbin Burns got traded. Just talked about that yesterday in the AL preview to Baltimore. I think the DL Hall is going to be a solid starter for them in the future, maybe not this year. Brandon Woodruff also on the IL, so that's not great. So Freddie Peralta, who is like a really solid number 3 for them, like arguably probably one of the best 3s in the league, now has to be their number 1 starting pitcher. Jackson Chirino is their top prospect that got called up. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. The Brewers do have a lot of fun young guys. I mean, that's kind of what led them to win the division last year, as well as, they signed Rhys Hoskins. They signed Gary Sanchez to be their DH. Back to those young guys, Sal Frelick was a lot of fun last year. Joey Weimer, Garrett Mitchell are really solid players as well. Christian Yelich is still there. He had a good bounce back year last year. So they're a team, like I think they could challenge us because I think the Cubs and the Reds are, pretty similar, all on that kind of same tier. I'd probably put right now the Brewers the bottom of those 3 teams, but I think, I wouldn't be shocked if the Brewers are in the race. They're kind of one of those teams, they seem to be there, always in it. Then next, we'll move on to the Padres. Padres are 4-5. After splitting the opening series in Korea with the Dodgers, they then came home, split a series with the Giants, and then lost 2 of 3 to the Cardinals, so that's not a great series. The Padres and Giants are kind of right there. I think they're going to be right there in the NL West. Sadly, though, the Padres, this offseason, they did trade Juan Soto, one of their better players, but Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis are still there. They did get some solid players from the Yankees in return. Mike King, he can be a really high-end reliever, or he could even be a starter. The Yankees are kind of having transition to that starter role. Kyle Higashioka was in the Yankees organization forever as a catcher, like not bad catcher. I really like Jake Cronenworth. He can play first base, he can play second base. He's a good hitter. Xander Bogaerts is still there. Ha-Seong Kim had a really good year last year, so their team, they kind of fell off down the stretch, and that's kind of been their problem a little bit here. So maybe if they can finally put together that full season, like they did 2 years ago when they got to the NLCS. If we could see that, I could see the Padres in the playoffs again, but right now I probably have them on the outside looking in. And then the last team that I have missing the playoffs are the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds are off to a 4-2 start, taking 2 of 3 from the Nationals and also from the Phillies on the road. That's a really good win for them. Ellie De La Cruz might be the most fun player in all of baseball. If you're not familiar with his game, definitely look up on him. But another team, just a lot of young guys. Spencer Steer's a solid player. Christian Encarnacion Strands is going to be a solid first baseman. Hopefully Jonathan India, he can get more run again this year with Matt McClain on the IL for most of the year. He was a fun player for them as well. Noelvi Marte sadly did get suspended 80 games for PEDs, so that's not great. And then Will Benson's another one. Got to throw him in there as well. And then Nick Martini also, one more guy. I'm just throwing out names a little bit here with the Reds because they just have so many. He's an older guy, but he got off to a really good start this year. He's been around the league. He's actually from my area here in Illinois, so good to see him succeed after all these years. So the Reds are a fun young team. Hunter Green's a really good starter. They Graham Ashcraft's back. They added Frankie Montas, who maybe in a 3-year-old could fit in nicely. But I just think they don't quite have as much as the San Francisco Giants. San Francisco Giants are who I have as my final wild card team. They are currently off to a 2-5 start, though. Not great. Like I said, split that series with the Padres, but then got swept by the Dodgers. Granted, the Dodgers are probably the best team in all of the National League. I really like the moves that the Giants made this offseason. They, late in the game, but added Blake Snell to be their number 2 behind Logan Webb. Jung-Hoo Lee, they got over from Korea, could be a really good outfielder for them. Added Jorge Soler to do some DHing on top of, some guys that have already been there. So they were a team, like, they were in it last year. They finished 5 games under 500. They were right there. Lamont Wade, he's fun. He can have some big hits. Thairo Estrada is a really solid hitter as well. So, and Matt Chapman. I forgot to mention they added Matt Chapman. That's another really good addition. So that's why I'm high on the Giants. Like, they were just below 500, just missed the playoffs last year, like 5 games behind the Diamondbacks. So, maybe not super close in your book, but in my book, given these additions, I think that can get them over the top and into the postseason this year. And then my final dark horse team, and the team who I think wins the NL Central. Like I said yesterday, usually there's 3 or 4 of the division winners remain the same every year. I'm going with 4. Like I said, in the AL, the Rangers were my new division winner, and then I think in the NL it's the Cubs. So the Cubs are currently off to a 4-2 start, despite they lost 2 of 3 to the defending World Series champion, the Rangers, in the opener. They did take all 3 at home here to start their season at home against the Rockies. They then have a tough set with the Dodgers coming up this weekend. That should be a lot of fun to watch. Shota Imanaga was the pitcher that they added. I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Really solid for them. They need some pitching depth behind Justin Steele. However, sadly, Steele did strain his hamstring in the first series, so he's on the IL currently, but hopefully he can come back fully healthy. Seiya Suzuki was a signing I really liked last year. They also brought back Cody Bellinger. So some really solid outfielders to go with guys like Dansby Swanson, the big signing they had a couple years ago. Ian Happ's been solid. Christopher Morel can be a good DH for them as well. Maybe play a little bit of outfield. So they have some really solid outfielders, some solid hitters. And like I said, they stole Craig Counsell away from the Brewers. He's a manager that he just gets his guys, gets the best out of his players, knows how to win. So I like the Cubs to take the NL Central. Then moving on here to my final tier. So the contenders. This one we're actually going to go from the back to the front. So the first contender I have here is the Phillies. The Phillies are currently 2-4. Went 1-2 in both series against the Braves and the Reds at home to start. So not a great start for them. But they're a team, they had 2 chances to go to the World Series for the second straight year last year. Lost games 6 and 7 at home. But they pretty much returned the same team. They have good pitching with guys like Zach Wheeler. Bryce Harper's still there. Trey Turner, really solid infield. JT Realmuto might be one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. They're a team I'm still really high on. They've knocked off the Braves the last 2 years in the postseason. So I don't really see any reason why it shouldn't continue. Like I said, I kind of think they're just, them and the Braves are that far ahead of everyone else in their division. So I think it's kind of those 2 teams to lose. I don't know if the Phillies will be able to get over the hump in the regular season, but they have in the postseason, so that's really all that matters. We'll see if they can get back to the World Series next year, or this year. But the team that knocked them off, stopped them from winning the World Series, the defending NL champions, I have the Diamondbacks. I think they're going to be right back up there. They currently are off to a 4-3 start. After taking 3 of 4 from the Rockies, they did lose 2 of 3 to the Yankees, but that was a really competitive series. The game on Wednesday, Game 3, could have really gone either way. Diamondbacks, they have Corbin Carroll. He's by far the most fun player to watch. NL Rookie of the Year last year. Ketel Marte, good second baseman for them. Gabby Moreno, also a really solid catcher. Another team with solid catchers. Christian Walker can hit for some power. And then they're pitching. Oh, Alec Thomas again. Another really fun young outfielder. They added Jock Peterson to do some DHing in the offseason, so I like that. And then that 1-2 punch of Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, and then Jordan Montgomery they signed here late in the offseason, so when he's good to go, that's a really good top 3 starters. So they snuck into the playoffs last year as the 6th seed. I think maybe they get in a little bit more comfortably. I have them as currently right now the number 4 seed, so the highest wild card. And I think they could really challenge for the division if it wasn't for that team that we're going to get to here in a sec that's in first in the division. But first, we're going to go to the Braves. I think they win the NL East crown once again. They're off to a 3-2 start. Like I mentioned, took 2 of 3 from the Phillies on the road, and then split with the White Sox before the third game of that series was rained out. The Braves won the most games in baseball last year. They won 104 games, and they run back pretty much the same roster. Ronald Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, Sean Murphy. They have some really, really good pitchers to go with some really they have some really good hitters to go with some really solid pitchers. Guys like Max Fried and Spencer Strider. Spencer Strider might be the best pitcher in the National League. Charlie Morton's also there. They added Chris Sale in the offseason. Shout out another couple of hitters here. Austin Riley, got to give him his love as well. Michael Harris has been a solid center fielder. And Ozzie Albies actually did have a really good year last year. So, like I said, they're running back pretty much the same team, but it's a team that won 104 games a year ago. So even though they got bounced in the divisional round by the Phillies for the second straight year, I still think they're the best team in the NL East. And I think maybe this year they can finally get back to that NLCS, overcome the Phillies, but we'll have to see. And then, by far the best team in the National League, the team I think will represent them in the World Series, we have the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're off to a 7-2 start. Like I said, split that opening series in Korea against the Padres, but then took 3 of 4 against the Cardinals and then swept the Giants. The Los Angeles Dodgers added 2 of the biggest names in all of free agency. Shohei Ohtani, by far the best player in baseball, even if he's not pitching this year. He's so freaking good hitting. Hit a home run yesterday, first home run as a Dodger. He's the best player. He's changes the lineup. That they now have 3 MVPs at the top of their order with Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman. They then go and add Yoshibu Yamamoto, the best pitcher from Japan that was coming over in this offseason. He's going to be the ace of their staff, as well as then they also add Tyler Glasnow to go with guys like Bobby Miller, really solid pitcher. He's going pitching for the Dodgers here on Friday. Clayton Kershaw, we'll see what he has left in the tank when he can come back. Walker Buehler is also on the injured list right now. So they do have some guys that are injured, but they're deep. The Dodgers just always find the way. They're another one of those teams just always get the best out of guys. Gavin Lux, their second baseman, he was out all of last year with the torn ACL. He's back this year. He's a lot of fun to watch. Will Smith, another really good catcher. He also is in that best catcher in baseball argument. So I just think the Dodgers are by far the best overall around team. And I think this is finally their year. They don't choke to a divisional wild card in the NLDS this year. I think they finally get over the hump. And I think we have it. I think we have that Yankees-Dodgers World Series. I feel like every time you simulate MLB The Show, that's what the World Series is, just because those are by far usually the 2 most stacked rosters. And I think that's what we get in the World Series this year. And that's going to wrap up the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still here and you have not already, make sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe down below. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to follow the show and rate it 5 stars. Like I said, guys, really any support helps. I'm going to keep making these baseball videos multiple times a week. And like I keep mentioning, NBA, NHL playoffs right around the corner. Going to make videos for that as well as my final 4 picks here coming out tomorrow. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you then. Peace.